a fateful dream, a pagan prophecy, and a maiden's vow of chastity. Forces powerful enough to kindle a storm that would seal the fate of heroes. From that dream would rise a quest, a perilous journey to the world's edge, where love and destiny would be tested alike. Follow me now to the Court of Worms, where shadows of the old pagan world still lingered beneath the glow of the cross, and where a princess named Kriemhild dreamed of a falcon that would change the course of legend. Kriemhild, sister to King Gunther of Burgundy, was famed for her beauty and her quiet wisdom. Many knights had spoken her name, yet she kept her heart untouched. She would wait for a man worthy, not only of her hand, but of her honor. Kriemhild believed, deep in her heart, that the weavers of fate still listened, though none dared name them in a Christian court. One night, as the moon lay pale above the halls of Worms, Kriemhild dreamed. In her sleep, she saw a falcon, proud and strong, soaring high above the castle. She reached up as if to call it home, but even as she did, two dark eagles swept from the clouds and tore it from the sky. She woke with a cry, her heart pounding as if it too had been struck. Before dawn, she went to her mother, the Lady Uta, who was skilled in reading the shadows of dreams. Kriemhild told her what she had seen, and Uta listened in silence. When her daughter had finished, Uta said that the falcon was a high-born man who would win her love, a joy beyond all others, and a sorrow to match it. Kriemhild, troubled, said she would rather never love than suffer such loss. But Uta firmly told her that no one escapes what is woven, and that if such a man should ever come to the Burgundian court, Kriemhild would not refuse him. And far from Worms, along the Rhine, word travelled fast. Men were already telling of such a man, of Siegfried, the dragon slayer of the north, the prince who had bathed in golden blood and walked unburned from the lair of a beast. His fame rode before him like a herald, and it would soon reach the halls where Kriemhild waited, dream-struck and unaware that the falcon of her vision was already on his way. Beyond the forests of the Rhine, where mist clung to the mountains and the rivers ran cold as steel, word of Siegfried had already taken root in the songs of men. They told of the Prince of Santen, a warrior of such courage that even the bravest knights measured themselves against his deeds and found themselves wanting. He had slain a dragon and taken its treasure, and though he carried no crown, his fame outshone that of kings. Yet for all his glory, Siegfried sought something greater than gold or renown. He longed for a queen worthy of his name. When he heard of Kriemhild, the radiant sister of King Gunther of Burgundy, desire and destiny became one. In that moment, he made a vow in his heart that he would win her, whatever fate required. With 12 loyal knights in attendance, he rode south to Worms, the heart of the Burgundian realm, where the towers gleamed above the Rhine and the banners of crimson and gold fluttered in the wind. The people whispered his name before he reached the gate, for tales of his valor had crossed the kingdom like wildfire. At Gunther's court, Siegfried stood among lords and warriors, his bearing calm yet unyielding. He offered his service not as a vassal, but as an equal, a prince whose worth was proven by his own hand. The Burgundians welcomed him with cautious respect, for though his fame was great, so too was his pride. And behind the courtesy of that hall, old rivalries stirred, for the arrival of such a man was seldom without consequence. King Gunther received the prince with measured courtesy. He was a man of regal bearing, proud yet cautious, and though he smiled, his eyes weighed Siegfried as one might a blade newly drawn. To host such a hero was an honor and a danger, for in a court where pride was currency, another man's glory could feel like a challenge. Among the gathered lords stood Hagen of Tronje, Gunther's kinsman and captain of his warriors. Broad-shouldered and sharp of mind, he watched the newcomer in silence until the murmur of the hall grew restless. Then, stepping forward, Hagen spoke, not in anger, but in the careful tone of one who knows his words will be remembered. He told of Siegfried's deeds, how he had slain a dragon and bathed in its blood, how he had won the hoard of the Nibelungs and obtained a cloak of invisibility, how none had yet matched him in battle or in courage. The court listened, spellbound. Even Gunther's guarded expression softened, for the telling of great deeds stirs admiration in any king's heart. When Hagen's tale was done, Gunther rose and welcomed Siegfried to his hall, not as a rival, but as an honored guest. Yet beneath the banners and the courteous smiles, a subtle unease settled over the court. For when heroes meet, destiny stirs, and in the Hall of Worms, destiny had already begun to weave its snare. For many days Siegfried remained in Worms, and though he came as guest, he soon became the marvel of the court. In the lists and the training yard, none could match his strength or grace. The clash of his sword against steel became a kind of music, and those who sparred with him left humbled but honored, for his skill was matched by generosity. King Gunther watched him closely, weighing not only his prowess, but his pride. Hagen, too, studied the prince with the wary respect of a soldier who recognizes in another the same unyielding will. Yet neither could deny that Siegfried brought new fire to the Burgundian hall, and that even those who envied him could not help but admire him. In time, Gunther came to see in Siegfried not merely a guest, but a power to be reckoned with, and perhaps, if wisely guided, a power to be used. For though the Burgundian king commanded many loyal men, none possessed the might or fame of the Prince of Xanten, a place of old renown whose stones still whispered of the Romans and the legions that once marched there. And so a cautious friendship began, one built on mutual need, though neither man yet knew how far that bond would reach or what it would cost. All the while, unseen behind carved screens and high balconies, Kriemhild watched. She had heard the songs before she saw the man, yet when her eyes finally fell upon him, her heart trembled with both joy and fear. For in that moment, she knew the Falcon of her dream had come to her, proud, radiant, and doomed. Still, propriety bound them both. No word was spoken between them, for the customs of the court forbade such meetings. But in the quiet hours, when torches burned low and the hall grew still, she thought of him, and he, though surrounded by warriors and revelry, could not forget the unseen gaze that seemed to follow him like fate itself. As the seasons turned, peace and festivity returned to Worms. Yet in King Gunther's heart, restlessness grew. Surrounded by wealth and warriors, he still longed for something beyond his reach, a bride whose beauty and strength would bring him renown among kings. In the high hall, tales were told of Brunhild, the proud queen of Eisenstein, whose fortress rose from the frozen cliffs of the northern sea, in the distant land we now call Iceland, where storms and legends are born alike. None could claim her hand unless they bested her in contests of strength and skill, and many had died trying. She ruled her fortress by the sea as both monarch and champion, and it was said that no mortal man could master her. When Gunther heard these tales, desire and pride flared within him. He spoke of his intent before his council, and the hall fell silent until Siegfried rose. Calm and assured, he offered his strength and counsel to win Brunhild for his king. Gunther, moved by both ambition and need, accepted with gratitude. Yet Siegfried's offer was not made for glory alone. In his heart, the dream of Kriemhild still burned bright. The reward he sought was not gold nor crown, but her hand, should fortune favor their venture. And so, in quiet council, Gunther pledged that if Brunhild were won, Kriemhild would be Siegfried's bride. Thus, two fates were bound by a single oath, one born of desire, the other of love, and the web of destiny drew tight around them both. Upon hearing of this pact, a wry smile crossed Hagen's face. For Hagen knew what Gunther did not, that the Queen of Eisenstein was no easy prize, and that no man, mortal or otherwise, could win her without great peril. And so, with oaths sworn and sails prepared, the prince and his new companions set their course for the northern sea. At home, beside the Rhine, Kriemhild dreamed waking dreams of Siegfried. She moved through the quiet corridors as if haunted by her own prophecy, her heart heavy with yearning, her body restless, as though fate itself had taken root within her. The wind turned cold as they sailed north for Iceland, and the river gave way to the open sea. The ships creaked beneath their weight of arms and banners, their prows carved with dragons that seemed to defy the waves ahead. For 7 days they journeyed, the sun a pale disk above a world of iron water and whispering mist. The further they went, the harsher the sea became. Storms rose without warning, tearing at the sails like living things. Yet Siegfried stood unmoved, his hands steady on the helm, his gaze fixed toward the horizon where he knew Eisenstein awaited. The men who sailed with him spoke of omens, of shapes moving beneath the waves, of lights that danced on the foam, but Siegfried gave no heed. His heart, though steadfast, felt the pull of 2 worlds, the duty he had sworn to his king, and the unseen promise of love left behind beside the Rhine. At last, the fog broke, and before them rose Brunhild's stronghold, a fortress of black stone and glimmering ice, standing proud against the fury of the northern sea. Lightning flashed upon its towers, and the sound of the surf against the cliffs was like the roar of some ancient beast. There, at the edge of the world, stood Eisenstein, the realm of a queen whose strength was said to rival the gods of old. And as the ships drew near, Siegfried felt a chill that had nothing to do with the wind. He knew that whatever trials awaited within those walls, none would leave the same as they had arrived. The gates of Eisenstein loomed high above the surf, forged of black iron that glimmered like frost. From the walls came the call of great war horns, their voices rising over the crashing sea like the cry of ancient beasts. The people of the fortress gathered to see the strangers who had braved the northern sea. Then she appeared, Brunhild, Queen of Eisenstein. She stood upon the walls, her hair unbound, a river of pale gold catching the cold light of the northern sun. In her gaze was the calm of the deep sea and the fire of the lightning that crowned it. She was beautiful as the northern lights, radiant, untouchable, and cold enough to burn. Some said she was descended from the Valkyrie, the battle maidens of the old gods, and that their blood still lent her its strength. Whatever truth there was in the tale, none who looked upon her doubted that something of the divine yet lingered in her. She called down to the newcomers, demanding to know their names and their purpose. Gunther answered proudly, naming himself king of the Burgundians. Siegfried stood a half-step behind, as agreed, bearing himself with quiet deference, though even in humility, his strength could not be hidden. Brunhild's eyes lingered on him longer than courtesy allowed. That such a man would stand as servant to another kindled suspicion within her. Yet she said nothing of it, only commanded that they be received as guests, though every word she spoke carried the weight of a challenge. As they entered her hall, Siegfried felt the weight of the deception they had begun. He had faced dragons and lived, but this, he thought, was the first battle that might wound his soul. The hall of Eisenstein was vast and cold, its walls hung with spears and shields that caught the firelight like frozen stars. Brunhild descended from her throne, each step ringing against the stone. Around her, warriors stood in awe, for she shone not as a woman born of earth, but as something greater, forged by storm and sea. She spoke to her heralds, her voice carrying through the vaulted space. "No man shall call me wife unless he bests me at my own game of strength. Should he fail, he shall pay for his presumption with his life." Murmurs rippled through the hall, for many had tried before, none had returned. Gunther, bold with pride and blinded by desire, stepped forward and accepted her challenge. The challenge hung in the air like the echo of thunder. When the queen had withdrawn, Gunther turned to Siegfried, his face pale beneath the torchlight. He confessed that no man could hope to match such strength. Siegfried was silent for a long while. Honor bound him to his oath as Gunther's ally, yet the deceit sat heavy upon his soul. At last he spoke. If your heart is set, I will stand unseen beside you, but know this, every lie calls for its due. And so, when the dawn broke, Siegfried wrapped himself in the cloak of invisibility he had won from the dragon's horde. Hidden from mortal sight, he took his place beside the Burgundian king, silent as breath, ready to bear the weight of both their fates. The contests began upon the cliffs above the sea. The first test was the casting of the spear, a weapon so heavy that 4 men struggled to lift it. Brunhild hurled it across the field. The spear struck with a thunderclap, cleaving the earth. Gunther staggered beneath its shadow, yet as the queen turned, Siegfried, unseen, seized the shaft and hurled it back with twice the force. It thundered past her shield and buried itself deep in the stones behind. Brunhild, stunned by what she had seen, said nothing. Next came the trial of the stone, a boulder large as an altar, slick with frost. Brunhild lifted it as though it weighed nothing and cast it farther than a horse could gallop. Again Siegfried moved unseen, matching her throw and then leaping beyond it, bearing Gunther as if in flight. A hush fell. Brunhild's eyes widened, her breath catching not from effort but from disbelief. For the first time, she was bested. Her gaze flicked toward Gunther, this mortal king whose face bore no trace of the strength she had seen. Yet by the rules of her vow, she was bound. That night, as the torches burned low, she spoke few words. Her pride was wounded, but her dignity held. She ordered her attendants to prepare for departure, for she would keep her oath. And so the ships were ready to sail once more for the Rhine. The voyage home was quiet. Brunhild stood often at the prow, her thoughts as restless as the waves beneath. Behind her, Siegfried kept his silence, haunted by the lie that had won a queen's hand and kept a hero's honor in shadow. But even as the sea carried them home, fate had already set its snare, for the tale of Brunhild and Gunther was only beginning, and its shadow would soon fall upon them all. When at last they reached Worms, the city rang with celebration. Banners unfurled, bells pealed, and the people hailed their returning king and his radiant bride. But among them, another meeting took place, one that needed no words. For there, upon the castle steps, Kriemhild beheld Siegfried, face to face at last. The falcon of her dream had finally come to her, not from the heavens, but from the storms of men. It seemed as if a great weight of anguish was lifted and her heart soared, and in that moment, all omens were forgotten. The days that followed were bright with joy. Songs of victory and love filled the halls, and for a time it seemed that peace had come to the Rhine. Yet beneath the music and laughter, something unseen had begun to stir. A whisper from the old gods, warning that no oath sealed in deceit can remain unbroken. As the fates mark Siegfried and Kriemhild's beginning, a dream is fulfilled and a prophecy is set into motion. Yet a shadow is already falling across the light. Thus ends the second song of Siegfried. With Kriemhild's dream fulfilled and its prophecy awakened, the falcon and the maiden are united. Yet their joy is built upon a lie, and the old gods are not so easily deceived. They may have fallen silent, but the fates have more in store for Siegfried, and for the lovely maiden who holds his heart. If you've enjoyed this journey into the mists of Teutonic legend, please leave a like and subscribe for more epic folklore. The songs of Siegfried are not yet ended. His journey continues. Watch for the next episode in our playlist, Echoes from Valhalla. To read the Nibelungen lead in full, check the links in the description below. Thank you for joining me today. Until next time.